Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Geoff Mosher's here from the Inside the Birds podcast, which I would imagine is getting an increased amount of listens starting now. How are you, Geoff?
It has been. I've been doing well. How are you, Mike?
I'm good. It's nice to be back into the fire of all the flurry of things that are happening. I mean, Eagles camp, Flyers free agency, the NBA draft, Phillies at the trade deadline. I mean, this is a summer that you usually don't get. I mean, this is a very unexpected mix of things here. But the Eagles obviously take center stage. And Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, unexpectedly, the duo spoke today, and I thought had some very interesting things to say. I guess we can start off at the top of the list, which would be Jalen Ertz. Neither one really wanted to say he's the guy, he's the starter. They did say he's taking the reps with the ones. He's worked hard. He's earned that. But they say they want him to take the reins in. Can you read between the lines to say they're just saying this and they're continuing this charade, or is there something more than that?
I think it's just consistent with what Nick Sirianni has said since he's gotten here, and what he has said has been echoed by Howie Roseman in the front office. It's about competition. You have a very young player in Jalen Ertz. He was not a top 5 pick, so it wasn't, so obvious that you just hand the guy the keys to the offense the way Doug Peterson did with Carson Wentz when he got here. They're still in a fact-finding mode, more so with Jalen Ertz. And for those who were disappointed or upset or read too much into the idea that they wouldn't name him the starter, I always said, you'll get your answer at training camp. You'll see. He'll be out there with the first team on the first day and throughout camp. He is the starting quarterback right now. And the only reason they're not saying it is because they do want to see him, knowing that he's running with the ones, take the reins and see how he does. I mean, he's going to be the starting quarterback unless they do make a trade, or I'll say unless he's completely awful and falls all over himself at camp. But I mean, he would have to be really, really bad, have a terrible camp to not be the starter. But at the point that Nick Sirianni is trying to make is that everybody's out there competing, and it doesn't really make sense to announce anybody as a starter at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I get what he's doing, and I think he was trying to dance around it as much as he possibly can without saying he's the guy. I think they were trying to show as much confidence in him as they can without breaking the message. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that. I think what people have to also understand though is when you're a quarterback and you don't go in the first round, that's pretty substantial as far as, I mean, how you're go look at the list of quarterbacks who have been drafted in the second round, right? Over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Some of them have done well, like Colin Kaepernick and Derek Carr. You'll find 7 or 8 of them are complete duds too. Your Deshaun Kaisers or Geno Smiths. So the point is that you're kind of like anybody else in the second round. You're not really handed anything. Most second rounders aren't handed anything. So I'm just laughing at my dog now in the background of the picture here. But so that's the thing. Like it's way more of a fact-finding mission as opposed to when you draft a kid top 10 and you start him right away and you kind of have an idea of how he's going to be, and now you have to kind of build up around him. So it does follow suit to not really go out of your way to declare anything, and that goes for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people have a problem with this, but I mean, Ertz is a guy, like if it was Carson Wentz and you're worrying about like his, is this going to I don't think this bothers Ertz.
I don't think it does either. Although I have to admit, I think as a human being, he'll probably never admit it, but the idea that you're constantly hearing about Deshaun Watson, it was asked in the press conference today, I don't think it per se impacts him professionally on the field, but just as a human being, I'm sure it's not so great to always have to hear and have in the back of your mind that I could be playing really well and it still may not matter. But as I'm sure he's been advised by people both with the team and without the team, that the only thing he can control is what he does. And if he plays well, even if it's not as an Eagle, if he does get traded, he has the opportunity to go somewhere else, most likely, and win that starting job. So you might as well start winning that job wherever it is, where your feet are at right now.
Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, Football at 4. All right, Zach Ertz is here. Howie Roseman addressed it. It sounded like he thinks that Ertz will be on the roster at the start of the season.
Well, he kind of said, you always leave yourself wiggle room when you phrase it. Did he say no doubt about it, 100% Zach Ertz will be here at the start of the year? No, he said, I expect. Your expectations can change if somebody picks up the phone and calls you and makes you a great offer. I think what will be a telltale sign for their true intentions, which I believe haven't changed, is how much work he'll get when the pads come out. And if you're really truly planning on having Zach Ertz in your offense, then you're probably planning on playing a lot more 12 personnel than maybe you originally thought, because you're not going to have him there and just sit on the bench doing nothing if you think he can still contribute, right? Today, he was in and out of the team, and this is just day one, so don't read too much into it.
Mm-hmm.
But by my count, there was not a time where they were out on the field offensively in a 12 personnel package with Ertz and Goddard on the field at the same time. So what does that tell you? I don't know. If it's that way 2 weeks from now, I think you'll get a pretty good indication of what the plans are. If they're going to be heavily 11 personnel, then it's hard for me to think that these two guys are still going to be on the team together.
Yeah, because Sirianni was asked, hey, does that, change? Do you have to play more 12 personnel? He didn't indicate that, we have to play more because we have two great tight ends. He kind of tried to say, no, we could K in 11, and then you just have to figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, training camp really, for those, we weren't there last year. You got a great reminder today of how open-ended every single comment about everybody and everything is. I mean, everything's possible. Anything can happen. Everybody's just working really hard. Everybody's competing. There's no starters. We're just here learning everything. It's very hard to nail these guys down on specifics on day one of training camp.
Yep. All right. So that being said, do you think that's Ertz will be here?
I don't. I really don't. I still, I said it with Josh the other day. I still struggle with the idea of having an $8.5 million backup tight end a year after you sold your fan base on the important economics of having a backup quarterback drafted in the second round because he's cost controlled. Like, why is it? It's very important position, quarterback, and it's important to not have to spend 7, 8, 10, 15 million on a backup quarterback this day. So you draft one in the second round. That was their rationale. Economic. Okay, what's the economic rationale of having an $8.5 million backup tight end? Can you find one? Does that make sense? Not to me.
No. I agree. So we'll see. By the way, I guess Nick Sirianni got an introduction to live press conferences in Philadelphia today.
Because of his kid?
Just in general, the jockeying the
course.
jockeying for position to get your question in. How many? Now, was this a live setting? Was the Zoom gone?
Yeah, the Zoom was gone. It was a live press conference, so it was kind of sort of normal-ish, I would say. There were not any one-on-one interviews or even like kind of scrums. Every interview today was a podium, outside podium interview. I think Jalen Ertz was the one who was seemingly most taken aback by how it works here, because at one point at the end of his press conference, as guys were trying to shout their questions out, he goes, oh, that's how y'all do it here? Like, you just start shouting over him. It's almost like, how it is in college. Everything is like very segmented. I'm sure they call on certain guys to ask questions. It's not a free-for-all like it is. It's like its own sport here in Philadelphia. So I think he was a little surprised by that.
Well, a year, like, for doing it for your rookie season and being on Zoom had to be way different than looking at all these people just like firing questions. And they all, how are you feeling? What do you take? And, I got to pay the rent. I mean, he obviously was a little wide-eyed at first, but it seems that, I don't know. You mentioned it. I mean, he's gone through this before, Ertz. So I thought today he handled himself pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say this, for as much as the public likes to think that there's a real adversarial relationship between players and media, and they really get a kick out of any time, one calls out the other or vice versa. All 6 guys, I think, who came to the podium, we're talking Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, and I'm probably missing someone. But I think every single one of them sat down And before it started, looked at the media there and said, you know what, it's really good to see you guys in person again. It's nice. It's good to have interaction that's not kind of, coordinated, but, stream of conscious sometimes. And just to have people kind of make, anything in life, you make connections with face and voice and things like that.
Well, I was wondering because I know the Aaron Rodgers presser today, they had people there. They also had people on Zoom. So it was
really?
They let people that were there really dominate it, and then they said, all right, we're going to take a couple Zoom questions for people who were not able or weren't allowed or for whatever reason were not there. That's why I wasn't sure.
Well, I think about that, and I'm talking out of place here, but just speculating. One, there might have been a lot of national type of media who wanted to be in on that press conference who, for obvious reasons, couldn't be there because of where they're located. Or two, Wisconsin, the way it like Milwaukee is 2.5, 3 hours, right, from Green Bay. So maybe it was a way to get like media who are not from or in Green Bay at the time as part of the press conference while limiting how many people are actually at the Green Bay itself press conference, because they are doing that here in a smaller sense there, that we are a part of tiers. Like if you're 2M in the media, you get to kind of ask the questions and be a little close, like sitting in the seats. If you're 3OA or something like that, you're around. You can't ask a question, but you can be like within 5 feet of where the media asking questions are, which I found a little odd, but these are the rules that they are right now.
Yep. All right. Let's dive into some other things that I guess were of note today that maybe we didn't know is guard Isaac Seumalo. He did not play with a hamstring injury. He did not practice today. So you got Seumalo and then you got Landon Dickerson, two guys who play that position. Neither one of them could be out there today. So Nate Herbig was at first-team guard. So we already have our first offensive line issue of the season.
Yeah, what's that expression about the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Nate Herbig, he's out there, left guard, looking good, by the way. He's down I think Adam Kaplan reported on our podcast that he was down close to 30 pounds, which is something he needed to be. Looking svelte there for an offensive lineman. So yeah, he took his spot there at left guard. The funny thing is, the Eagles don't tell you how these guys got hurt, and you wonder how there are 6 or 7 guys who are out of practice on day one when they haven't done anything. I don't want to make assumptions, but I think a real big part of our Q&A that dropped this morning with Quentin Michael and Jason Avant was they talked about that conditioning test that the whole team has to take before the start of practice and before the start of training camp, and how difficult it can be. And certain players at certain positions have to run gassers in a certain amount of time. And there have been times where guys got hurt taking that conditioning test. And just for an example, and I don't know if this is exactly the case, but Quez Watkins was listed as out today. And what the team wrote was incomplete physical, which is, for a wide receiver to get to camp and not be able to complete a physical. I don't know if that's related to the conditioning test or something else, but I'm sorry. I mean, when you're a second-year wide receiver who's I think a 6th-round pick trying to make the team, that can't look pretty good that you're already out because you're not able to get through your physical unless there's something different about this. But it just doesn't have a good look to me.
All right, let's stay at wide receiver. Obviously, Jalen Reagor, last year's first-round pick. People were saying, all right, I want to see him. Well, he was limited. What's the story there?
Yeah, he was out there for warm-ups and he was doing things. So at first there was some uncertainty about whether or not he was going to practice. And then he kind of late came off the field. So it looked like maybe a decision was made there even before he did anything, that they were going to be cautious with the lower leg injury that they said he has. It's my understanding it's minor, and that he could be back very soon, and that this was kind of just to make sure that you don't want to get this guy hurt day one overdoing it. So It was a very short practice today by camp practices anyway. So we'll see.
All right, Devonta Smith. The first thing is everybody talked about this guy catches everything. Well, of course, the first tweet I saw was Devonta Smith dropped the pass. Is it the Philadelphia? Is the Philadelphia hands getting shifted over to him?
God, that would just be so Philadelphia, wouldn't it?
Right.
Or he's got some kind of Markel Fultzian, Ben Simmonsian thing of not being able to catch the ball all of a sudden. But I don't think that's going to be the case. But it was fair, and he even said it himself in his Zoom conference. Today was not his best showcase.
Which is so wild that here's this guy, who has all this hype coming in. You draft a wide receiver number 10 overall, and he comes out and says, I didn't really have a good day.
No, I know. It's not great. And look, you at least want accountability. It's not like he tried to hide it. He dropped a few. I thought his route running was just kind of, for a guy who's been all business and coming out of Alabama, I would suspect that on day one, it was just a little bit of pressing. And sometimes when you're in your head, you tend to play slowly and react slowly. So it might make it look like you're doing things half speed out there, but it's not necessarily laziness. It's just like you're caught up in the moment a little bit. And maybe that was the key. I know that's hard to believe because of everything that he's done in his college career in the big stage, but this is not Alabama. It's Philadelphia. So we'll see.
All right. Football 4, Geoff Mosher's here. We have so much I want to kind of hit on. Who got the reps at left tackle? Do you have I know we don't have a starter there, but did you get a read on the way that they are going to approach this?
Yeah, and by the way, a lot of the 7-on-7, 11-on-11 today was mostly red zone and a little bit starting at the 20 moving, but there wasn't a ton of it, so it's hard to, I didn't track, but I saw Jordan Mailata and Andre Dillard at left tackle. Was it 50-50? Hard to say. Can't keep your eye on everybody, but it seemed that way to me.
So that's definitely something that we're all going to be keeping an eye on as well. All right, so let's go to the defensive back. I wasn't here the other day. I'm sure you discussed it with Josh about Steven Nelson. But what does that do for this defense now that Nelson was out there? I guess it puts Maddox right in the slot. I mean, I guess the question would be, do you think Maddox would have been on the outside? Who was the guy behind Nelson? Like, there's a lot there to me that I think is interesting. But what does a Slay, Nelson, Maddox secondary do for this team?
It gives it stability, I think, and it puts the right people in the right places. Steven Nelson's a decent enough outside corner to be your number 2 corner. He's not going to be perfect. There are going to be games where after the game, we're like, everybody wanted Steven Nelson for this. That's just how it works in the NFL. He's going to see a lot of targets because he's the guy opposite Darius Slay. But if it puts Avonte Maddox inside in the slot where he'll compete, he did get first-team reps in the slot. There was a lot of zone today, by the way. I would say mostly zone coverage today. And I don't know if that's because it's going to be predominant in Jonathan Gannon's scheme, or I've also been told that a lot of times it's best to start off with zone because you're working on eye discipline a lot, and you want your defense to see things in front of them and, patterns and certain like that before you start getting into man coverage and just having them run around. So it's a lot of it is a learning process too. But yeah, it just puts the pieces in their place for now, Mike. But then once there's an injury, which there always is, right?
Yes.
Kind of throws everything out of whack.
Well, I talked earlier about this motion, see if you agree. Every deficiency they had, they upgraded.
Every deficiency they had.
On defense. I mean, the second quarter last year was awful. They're better there. I thought Mills was okay. I would have to imagine Harris is better than Mills at that position. The linebacker, I guess bringing Wilson's better than whatever you had there last year. I mean, it seems that every spot that you had a problem, I'm not saying that you're significantly better, but they have upgraded the deficiencies that plagued them last year. How much?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's fair to say. For their immediate holes, they filled them. Do I think they're the deepest? Not even the deepest team, but have they been deeper in the past from 2017, 18, and 19 at cornerback, safety, defensive tackle, and even linebacker? Yes, they've been deeper at those positions before. But you were right. At the end of January, if you were to have the Eagles, line up in February and play a game, they had no number 2 corner, no number 1 linebacker. You're correct. Not a lot of depth on the D-line or a pass rush because of guys who were left. So I agree with you. They filled starting spots or spots of need. They're just not as deep as you would expect a team that really wants to compete, right, for a Super Bowl to be.
And the way I kind of look at it is, do I think Steve Nelson's worth 4 or 5 wins? No, but what he does is he allows you to compete in 4 or 5 games that you probably can't compete in, and now that game is kind of in limbo because you have a competitive NFL player at that position.
Yeah, that's where it goes back to you have the right pieces in the right places. You have Avonte Maddox who now can be inside where he's best. You don't have to rush Zach McPherson onto the field as a 4th-round pick. You don't have to play Michael Jacquet, who's not ready to be a starter just because he has good size on the outside. So, yeah, it completes you in a way that you can line up, play a game, and harbor competitive expectations without thinking, well, we have such a sore spot here that there's no way around it.
Give me a quick offensive and defensive observation you made today.
Well, I thought Jalen Hurts didn't have a great day. Tried to thread a couple of windows.
That's
in the
not
red
a great
zone.
observation. Damn it.
You didn't say a positive one. You just said an
I'm
observation.
I'm kidding.
No, he threw, he tried to thread one to Gainwell. Got picked off by Josiah Scott. There was a play where he rolled to his left, pretended to tuck it like he was going to run, but then kind of pulled it out, and it wasn't fooling Darius Slay because he batted it away. I look, to be fair, and this will be a common observation, defense is usually ahead of offense the first few days of camp because offense involves timing and rhythm and comfort, and defense, you don't get blocked by offensive linemen very well without the pads on. So defense is always ahead of the offense for the first week or so of camp.
All right, defensive observation.
Well, I did tell you that they played a lot of zone, a lot of two deep coverage. So Milton Williams, the rookie third-round pick, who is a defensive tackle, at least it was announced as one, played a lot of defensive end in the sub packages there. So that was kind of interesting. And then also, when Hargrave and Cox come off the field as your starting defensive tackles, it seemed like the first two guys on were Hassan Ridgeway, as you would expect, and T.Y. McGill. Not a name that I think people expected to hear. So, but that was the rotation there. And then Josh Sweat, I'm sorry, I'm going along a little, but Josh Sweat seemed to rotate with Barnett at one of the defensive end spots opposite Brandon Graham on the first team there.
I like it. All right, so give the people who are fans of the Inside the Birds podcast and you get football at 4, you get us every day, but you guys, what can they get if they want more Eagles? What is the schedule changing? What's the new schedule? When does that take place?
We will have more. We're not ready to make that announcement yet on what, but I can hint to you that if you're enjoying the Q&A show, it's going to be sticking around for a little bit.
Okay, there you go. Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 is back tomorrow. It's Adam Kaplan's observations, day 2 of Eagles camp, and of course Andrew is back on Friday. Jeff will be here on Monday. Football at 4, Eagles camp is back. It all feels right in the world. Thank you, Jeffrey.
You're welcome. Have a great one, Mike.
All right, Geoff Mosher here on the Sports Bash.